what a blast going through this label. I mean, like, this just some really cool things. I always love to talk to a label who's got something different going on, something unique going on. So let's start with the name Off Air. What does that mean?
So Off Air came about. We initially launched Off Air as a show series.
Right.
We'd always planned to have the label as well, but the start was the experience, to be able to demonstrate to our community what this is. And it's based on the idea of not being so connected, but having a relationship with our technology. So like going on airplane mode or being on do not disturb. And in the sense of music, it's like the opposite of being on air. So in the show series, a lot of the events that we do are with artists who are celebrating an album release, especially the ones on our label. Although it's not always day and date with their publicity.
Sure.
But we did this with Raphael Sadiq and Angel Olsen and Moses Sumney and other artists who had a week of press sprints. And from the artist perspective, when you're in New York on the publicity tour of an album, you're always on.
Yeah.
People are asking you questions, pretty much the same questions at every place, and you have to answer them. You're doing things for the public, and everything is being recorded. Everything is on film. So the purpose of the show from the artist perspective, and the purpose of the experience, like whether you're listening to recorded music or the live experience, is that the artist gets to feel that they don't have to be on. We simply put a sticker on people's cameras, not just for the branding, but because we're inviting people to keep their phones in their pockets. We're not saying like you can't use your phone, or like it's just we're inviting you to an intention that the artist set. And when an artist is playing in an amazing sounding room for a room of faces and not phones, they can feel vulnerable again, because not everything is being posted. And at the same time, it's the same intention for the listener on our label or the attendee to our experiences, is that our music is meant to let people turn off to invite people to turn off the things that are buzzing through their minds in their daily grind.
Oh,
so
interesting.
When you
it's a metaphor too.
Yeah, exactly. So when you go to listen to any of our albums, say you go to listen to Pauly the PSM's album that is inspired by the stars in space, you're invited to disconnect from everything that's going on in your daily life, all your daily worries, and like really let the music guide your experience. When you're at an event, it's the same thing. Like, let's all check at the door however we got here, whatever's been going on in our day. When we go to a concert or when we go to a music experience, let's all be present. And let's all turn off these distractions, and let's let music not be in the background, but actually guide our experience.
Well, that's funny you said that, because there's this, and I want to ask you a little bit more about that foreground background thing in a second, but there's also this, like, my favorite line I've heard this year. Instead of music getting stuck in your head, we want your head to get lost in the music. That's great. I love that, because I can totally, that resonates with me as a music fan. I completely get that. I mean, for me, no explanation required. But what does that mean to you?
I mean, I think for me, like, I think going back to the inception of like the idea of the label, um, like I just started listening to music to set up my day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what that did for me was like realize that I needed music that did exactly kind of what you just said, right? It's like I don't need something in the morning to like get me going. I don't need like Tyler the Creator to like
Yeah.
pump me
Okay.
up. I just want something to be like, okay, like intentionally be a part of my morning routine. And it's a mid ground of I want it to set my day up, but I also don't want it to completely take over my day.
Okay.
And that's like a lot of like where we ended up in kind of like what the type of music that we wanted to kind of make. And I feel like no one's really defined it in a way, and
Yeah.
we're trying to do that. Like it's not like it's hard to explain, right? Like we have to like sit here and talk about it for 10 minutes for anyone to get it. And so like, but I think a lot of people feel this way, and there's a lot of it going on, and streaming has made a lot of it accessible and easier. And so yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of
I want to
mindset.
I want to like ask you a little bit more about this, like starting your day with music, because I've talked to a lot of labels in this genre or in this realm about the difference between well, you guys use the term foreground and background, but I've been struggling with this concept of music as a utility versus music as art, because on streaming a lot of people are using music as a utility in the sense of it's meant to be put on the background when I have friends over for dinner to make me appear cultured. People will use it to pump themselves up at the gym. When you're talking about using music in the morning, are you actually meditating on the music like it's a book, or is it just like a utility?
I think for us, it's not necessarily like we're not saying like it has to be one or the other. I think for every person, it's different. For me personally, a sit down meditation to music.
Wow.
Doesn't do it for me.
Okay.
Like
okay.
Like I say, like that doesn't do it for me. Like, and that never has.
It'd be fun to try.
Like, yeah, I mean, I think it definitely works for some people. I mean, like obviously, like with the rise of Calm and those types of apps, like people are doing it, and there's lots of a big business there, right? Like lots of people are saying like sit down, focus, do a mantra, like get your day started. For me, what I found got me going was just like the idea of having some music on while I'm making my coffee that just like woke me up a little bit. Okay. And it is, I think it is a utility there. Okay. It's that sense of just having it. It physically made me feel better. Like when I did it, I looked forward to pressing play on my Rishi's Sunrise playlist. Like I look forward to it every day, and I kept trying to find stuff to add to it. It added a nice utility to my day. And I think while I was going through it, what I had found was that the streaming services hadn't really built a playlisting structure for me in that. Sure. I'm also like I'm a bit of a snob when it comes to some of that stuff. But like I to me it felt like there was a space to even of the stuff you were seeing on streaming services and playlists and stuff like that to make it a little bit better, more intellectual, recorded better, less of a hey, here's music to meditate to, and more of it. It's like a happy medium between here's the utility and here's art. It's like it's like that. If you can walk that line, is where we want it to be.
Nate, do you have something?
Yeah, it's the utility involved is for music to set our mental and emotional intention for whatever we're doing. So for Rishi making coffee, there's a specific mindset and emotion that he strives to have in the morning. He's not necessarily, and I'm not necessarily going to like sit and meditate for 30 minutes. And we're not making music for people who are just meditators or people who put any tag to what they do, but it's just, I want music to guide me through this. So even music at the gym, like there's music I listen to at the gym that has an emotional attachment to me, that does pump me up, that makes me run faster or longer or harder. By the way, Rishi, you gave me this mental image of Tyler, the Creator, being my personal trainer, and that's like now my dream. So it's about making it accessible for people to form their own experience to it.
Yeah.
And we are seeing that. I just spoke with someone yesterday who runs a 500-person company and went to a sound bath experience that lasted. It was 90 minutes of lying down with your eyes covered and coming out of it in tears and just like a reset. But not everyone. That's not for everyone.
Sure. Yeah.
And some people could feel like they don't know how to get there, right?
Right.
And we're not necessarily trying to get people there. We can, and we would love to, but it's in any form of that experience that my friend had, to be able to set on your own, to be able to hit play on something that resonates with you, and to just be able to disconnect, to go off air, and to have music guide you. Or if your meditation is actually making coffee in the morning, you know, like Gandhi's meditation was weaving on his loom. I'm not comparing Rishi to Gandhi, but
yeah, that's so let me ask you then, because Rishi, you had mentioned this idea of potentially, which isn't you, but of meditating with the music for a couple of minutes in the morning, listening to the music. Is anything other than that, any use of music other than that, disrespectful to the artist in any way, if we are just using it as background music?
I don't think so at all. I think the whole idea of, at least what we're trying to do as a label, is like, this is music to set an experience for you, however you want to use it. Sure. I mean, I think totally. I think that's part of, I think actually going kind of like back to like the idea of kind of like ambient music, and ambient music being very like, it's very like, I don't know, it's almost institutional, right? Like it's very like, you need to do it this way. It has to be this way. It has to be this. Like there's obviously like lots of beauty and reason to think that way. But like, we wanted to kind of take a step to the side of it being a little bit more for anyone. And you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to know how to listen to this music to listen to it. Yeah. If you want to listen to like the music that's made, that the artist made for waking up for you to go to sleep, like if that does it for you, like it should absolutely do that. Like, I don't think anybody would feel bad or like feel like you're misusing the music in any way.
Well, I think I totally agree with you, and I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here, because I think I completely agree with you. And if I walk into a hotel, a fancy hotel, and they're playing nice jazz music, to me that is bringing this whole moment together, and it's what I expect. In the same way, when I'm at the mall in December, I expect Christmas music to be playing overhead. That's part of the appeal. And I think, you know, perhaps in a way, this is my epiphany I'm just kind of experiencing now, because I struggle with this, I love background music in certain environments, and I struggle as an artist to think, somebody spent a long time to create this. Am I disrespecting it? But I suppose in the same way that entering a building and not paying respects to the engineers who are keeping the roof above your head, you know, it's just part of the experience. You just, you know, it's something we come to expect. Let me ask you this, and on the same vein, do you have a calling to try to mainstream this type of music? Do you think that there is a future for this type of music in any way that would be pop in any way?
I mean, I think pop is probably the wrong word.
Sure.
But mainstream, this music is the literal point. Like, we want this to be something that is like something that people think about and do and put on music like this in every kind of in everyone's kind of like personal genre of listening to music, right? Like I think there's something for everyone here. I think the way music is accessible now, it's possible. I really think that I genuinely believe that there's going to be a moment where people like understand like this in between foreground background music kind of thing, right? Like, and it's going to be something that a lot of people listen to. I think they already do. Like, the funny thing about it is a lot of this music is it's very individual. Like, you listen to this type of music on your own a lot.
That's right.
So you don't talk about it.
That's right.
You don't go like, "Hey, I heard this really awesome like album that I woke up to," right? Like, unless it's like Aphex Twin, like like ambient record, right? Like that has a whole nother thing. Like, that has its place in this, but like, I think like it's just something you don't talk about. So it's like you don't hear people talk like saying, "I'm listening to Max Richter's Sleep when I go to sleep," but like
that's fair.
The amount of people who do is big.
You're absolutely right. You can see that on the streaming numbers.
Yeah. And I think the question of mainstream also has to do with what we consider to be mainstream in terms of our access points. So DSPs are one form of mainstream, but it's also like, I'd love to be able to ask my smart speaker to tell me to play music for however I'm feeling. Right? Wow. Like you can say, you can ask your smart speaker, I'm not going to say her name because she wants to participate in this conversation, but I can ask my smart speaker to play me some breakup songs if I'm feeling crushed, right? I can ask my smart speaker to play inspirational songs, but if it's, I want music to wake up to, or I want some psychedelic music to stargaze to, like the ability to get more specific with that, or the ability to communicate an emotion. That's just one sense is the smart speaker. The other is an example that you brought up is the hospitality industry and the recreation industry that are trying to set moods and moments. The music industry has made it very difficult for niche or mainstream properties, mostly niche, to be able to explore like their musical persona. So if you go to amazing spas, they're subscribing to spa music. And you can go, like, as a music fan, that can ruin your time, right? Like if you have some like really generic spa music playing, and that's just an example.
One thing.
The other is like at restaurants. Like, do you ever go like to a restaurant and you might love the music, but it might not be the music for that time?
Yeah.
You ever ask like the manager at the restaurant, like, can you just play something that doesn't make me want to shovel my pasta in my mouth?
Yeah, get out of here.
I mean, one of my favorite restaurants was playing like a Fugazi record from front to back, and I love Fugazi. It's like one of my favorite bands, but like I don't necessarily want Fugazi going back to the smart speaker real quick. I think there's like something there that we've always kind of dreamed of is, and it kind of goes back to the conversation about the name. Our dream in all of this is at some point we could say, "Hey, smart speaker, play off or take me off air," right? And the smart speaker knows your listening habits, knows what genres you listen to. It knows what time of day it is for you, and it knows kind of what music you've put on in the past. And when you say you want to take yourself off air, it's not going to play the Tyler the Creator's for you. It's going to play this foreground background music that sets your mood, and it changes depending on who you are and what time of day it is and where you are and all that kind of stuff. And if you could crack that code, the idea of off-air becoming like almost like the signifier of that type of music.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
that's like, if we ever were able to crack that,
Yeah.
it's like, how do we become the Xerox of
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
this,
Yeah. Kleenex.
right? Like
yeah.
that's like, that would be amazing, right? Like
Yeah.
but I think there's something to that. Like,
Sure.
I think people really want that, and no one's really presented it in a scalable way.
Yeah.
It takes time and energy and lots of, technology on top of it, but I think there's something there.
Well, it is, and as we're talking about this, it is interesting how there's no doubt that this genre and this super wide genre of neoclassical all the way to extremely experimental and everything in between, there's no doubt that this is up and this is coming up and becoming a lot more mainstream. I think that, the reason is because of DSPs is that it's accessible. You don't have to invest $20 in a piano CD. You can have every piano track ever without having to, because people had such a limited budget back then. I definitely see it's coming up, and it's got to be in response to the addiction to the phones, like you guys were talking about at the very beginning. Same thing is hopefully why we're seeing the rise of analog products. So let me ask you, let's talk about the artists and the role of the label, and talking about what you guys are doing for artists. From what I've seen and what I've read on your site, it seems to me that the label is this outlet. I mean, it's early yet, but the outlet for well-known artists to try something new. Like your bio says, cultivates a space for established artists to release music that explores beyond their familiar sonic territory. So it's kind of seems like it's specifically about existing artists to try something new. So it's an interesting position. Can you explain that a little bit, expand on that, and how you came to that?
Yeah. So part of it goes back to what you just touched on earlier about how accessible this music is. Like, if you want to listen to piano music, you don't have to go buy a $20 CD.
Yeah.
You can listen to hours on end of piano music. And a lot of what we find on the DSPs are more like work for hire type of music, because we know that the actual mainstream of this type of music as it is currently, and it is mainstream because there's so much business in it. Like, you can look at the followers and subscribers and how much people are trying to gamify it. It's sort of been locked into this place where, like, all it needs to do is sound like piano music and have a certain structure.
Yeah.
And then it works. Yeah. Right. And people know there is a science to sleep music, and there is a science to other stuff, but like, it's better from a business perspective for faceless music to be at the forefront of the mainstream of these genres,
for the DSPs.
For the
DSPs.
Sure.
And so we've listened to a lot of it, and as music snobs and music fans, it wasn't really hitting the mark for the intention that we would want. It's really great, fantastic background music if you want to just fill the air with sound waves.
Yeah.
That are like based on a mood, but we know that established artists have an aptitude already of being able to make music that people care about, and being able to articulate why their music is important. And so the idea is not necessarily to create playlists of a lot of the same type of music, but to have artists come in and be very specific about an intention that speaks to them, and use this as an outlet for them, whether it's something that has to do with mental health or exploring the night sky or waking up in the morning, and an ability for them to put a soul to the intention. So if you talk to Niia, whose album OffAir Music for Water is like an incredible journey, it's not just one genre across all the tracks, she'll talk to you about how this is meant to resemble the art and act of freediving, and what it does to your mind and your heart and your experience. And you can really feel her experience in that. And other artists like Anders Frieden, who's the frontman for In Flames, which is a metal band from Sweden. His label isn't gonna put out a ambient record, but he really, like, this was in his soul as music that he was making out of his, driven by his passion that he wanted to put out there. The name of his project is If Anything Suspicious. And it's an incredible lullabies album. Like, it's a dark lullabies album that really could speak to a lot of people. And so we're creating a space for artists like him or artists like Niia and others to be able to explore the ways that they create, explore the ways that they put out music, and explore the intention behind it. We're not trying to develop artists into multi-label deals. We're doing one-off licenses, project by project, based on an artist's vision, so that this can be their off-air outlet. Right. They can go back to writing and performing metal songs and performing at arenas, and when they're done, after like lighting up a crowd and being such high energy, they can go off air and listen to their album, and it can chill them out. Right. Like the behind the scenes for an artist on the road, performing in arenas, performing in small clubs, writing, and everything that they have to do to make pop music, or the genre of music that they're in, also carries a lot of anxiety and is very specific to what they do with their frontline label.
Sure.
And so this is a separate outlet for them.
And the other, real quick, the other thing I would say is, like, we're music marketers, right? Like, we come from like labels and management companies. Like, that's what me and Nate have built our careers on. And in starting label, like, purely like in a marketing sense, having a name that people have heard of or has a small fan base really helps get it to people in a way.
For sure.
And also helps mainstream this and go, hey, like, it gets the DSPs to look at it, it gets people to at least give it a listen. And so like, that was a bit of the impetus there. And
I appreciate you saying that. That's true. Yeah.
You know, and like, I want the biggest of the big artists. I want the Tom York piano record. Like, how do I get that?
Same.
How do I get how do I get the Kevin Parker music to stay up till 2 a.m. and like sit on the beach too? You know, like how do, like, you know, he's got it. He's probably got it sitting there. Like, like I want to build something where those guys are already making those records at home for themselves because they need an outlet. And then people are just like, hey, this off-air team knows how to do this. Like, go. Like, that's would be.
Well, the artists must love it. Do the artists love it? Like, being given this outlet?
Totally. They do, because it's work for them. Like, I mean, this is their living. But it's not in the same way, and it's not in the same structure. And the pressures are not the same. So it's fun for them. So the last project we put out was with a collaboration between Richard Reed Perry, who's a member of Arcade Fire,
beautiful record,
and Susie Ibarra. Yeah, thank you.
So nice.
And it's such a passion-driven thing for someone who is so talented in, like, from the classical perspective as Richard is, and to be able to collaborate with someone who doesn't have the same structures as alternative indie rock music. really push the boundaries. And there's an incredible relationship between the outlet that he gets in this realm of music with OffAir, and then how he shows up on a worldwide arena tour.
The other quick note too is that not only do artists love it, but I feel like managers love it, because they're like, what am I supposed to do with this ambient record? Or
oh yeah,
I don't know how to do it.
You mean like their primary label?
Oh, their primary label or their manager.
Right? Yeah.
Because artists who are making the stuff, they want a way to put it out,
right?
And the amount of time and energy it goes into figuring out what to do with it to make sure their artist feels like you're actually putting the time and effort into it.
Yeah,
is hard. It's not easy. And when we talk to managers,
very rarely has it gone well if the primary label's like, okay, we'll put this out in the in between. Very rarely. Yeah.
Everyone's always unhappy, always. And we are giving people that outlet, I hope, and not just because it gives people an out. Like we genuinely believe in it, and I think like that's the hope, is that we can be that for kind of the industry, and artists can be stoked, and managers can be less stressed out, and like
any label that's not territorial and is forward thinking would appreciate this, because the artist can get this out of their system and then come back refreshed and excited to do
exactly.
I think that would be great.
It's also,
do you by chance have a list of those labels?
Sure. Yeah.
You can email us. That'd be great.
Well, it would take a lot of, I mean, it would be a lot of forward thinking. You'd have to be looking down the pipe.
Also in today's age, right? Like there's no on cycle, off cycle for artists.
No, that's right.
This gives an artist an ability to do something in between records that keeps the cycle going, something to talk about, something that feels like genuinely thoughtful music and art, and something for people and fans like that feels interesting. So like I think there's even something there that like in today's world of always having to be talking, like literally in today's world of always having to be on, we're making a record to turn off. Like there's something just beautiful about, I think, that like what that can kind of spur.
And from the DSP strategy perspective, you're in some ways able to reach a wider or a different audience in this sense.
Oh, for sure.
While also being able to serve your current audience. So it's all about how many people you can hit on release radar when you put out your next frontline single. Yeah. So the strategy for the business sense is, how do we stay active? Yeah. Right. Yeah. And this is a great way to do it. I think, just to also go back to why established artists, I think a lot of this goes back to that too. But it's also, that's like, we know who we are, and that's what we're good at. Like we're not, as an agency, we're also an agency that works with artists. We do really well at partnering with somewhat established artists to very established artists to translate their creative vision, and for them to feel they're comfortable with us and knowing that we will never compromise an artist's creative vision for the sake of the dollars and cents in the streaming numbers, without being like stewards of that vision. Like we look at different technology and different opportunities as a canvas for them. Yeah. And that helps them to be successful.
Here's a question I have for your label that I don't know, that I haven't seen. What role does traditional activities play for your label? For example, like physical products, or even just having a Bandcamp. We've talked a little bit about Spotify playlists. These are things that a lot of us normal labels pursue initially. What role does like putting together, for example, that with that Richard Reed Perry, I was trying to find where I could get that on vinyl. So how does this, like, what are these pieces, what role do these pieces play for your label?
Vinyl is coming.
Okay.
Very soon. We're going to be doing a series of drops.
Wait, I mean, I don't know if we're partnering with Vinyl Me Please to put out a series of records.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So
there we go.
So they're going to be pressing our records, and they do an incredible job. They put incredible care and leadership to how we do packaging, and we have done a great job with really listening to test pressings and also reaching an audience that cares about exploring different musical experiences. So we're going to be releasing vinyl with them in a series of drops based on like our first 4 and then our next 4.
Okay.
And then so on. So
that's awesome.
We have stacks of test pressings right now, and everything is going into production.
That's great.
It's a lot to set up and time getting approvals and getting everything when you're doing 4 at once.
Okay.
But we feel that it's a great way to present an example of what the series is and how diverse our music is. And we know that community of vinyl collectors are so open to different musical experiences.
I think in the long run, there's something to even upping the idea of vinyl with especially this kind of music, like making them actual physical art pieces and figuring out a way to up that, kind of just production value.
Yeah.
I think we're halfway there. The artwork looks really, really great, but if we get this going and it's successful, how do we keep pushing that? I think there's definitely something there for that. And then on the Bandcamp side, we have a JV with Universal on the label. So there's some Universal Bandcamp stuff that
I see
we can't fully lean into, but
sure
they won't let us do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not that they won't. I mean, our partners at Universal are amazing, and they want to, obviously, like everyone we work with. But there's just this big corporate,
right,
Universal wide thing that they're not going to make an exception for the little OffAir label at the moment. At least,
I see.
We might get there at some point, but
Oh, interesting.
Part of signing up with Universal, who have been wonderful to us, is there's a couple things that you don't get always, but there's a lot of things on the other side you do get. So
business daddy.
The positives way outweigh the negatives.
Oh, sure.
And if we want to be mainstream, Bandcamp can be a part of that, but also our ambition is is not to be super niche.
No, I think that's great. I love what you're saying, Rishi, about the artwork and the packaging as an artistic statement. And I think for fans, for fans of this music, that's the expectation. I mean, if I got that Richard Reed Parry record in the mail and it was black vinyl, 130 grams, and just super gloss. Sorry if it is, by the way, but I'd be disappointed because it's this is meant to, when I put a record on like this, and there's many labels that do great things like this. It's that whole experience of, oh wow, this is matte. Oh, this smells good. This feels good. Lots of layers. There's an expectation with these types of listeners and collectors.
Yeah, I mean, I think the further you can push it, the better. We gotta prove out the model of being able to sell some of them before we can go too crazy.
Sure.
But,
yeah. The next step will be doing a vinyl and curated scented candle bundle.
Oh yeah. Let me ask you real quick before I let you go about the live music component. We touched on it at the beginning, but how is this all connected then? The digital release, the future vinyl drops, and then the live show. Is the live show a one-off? Is it a mandatory for the release? What role does that play?
Our strategy for each release is bespoke for that release. So some of the artists we work with don't perform live. Sometimes there's a global pandemic.
Yeah.
So
Sometimes.
And for some projects, the artists want to do several live experiences. Also, the instrumentation is different on so many of them. So there's no one size fits all for everything. It is important to us to have some sort of live experience connected to each project. And it's also important to us to demonstrate as a community and a collective what OffAir is about. So you'll still see some live experiences that we do with established artists who aren't necessarily on our label, but are celebrating an album release and want to have this disconnect to really connect experience to celebrate their album release. And you'll see with each project that we put out on OffAir Records, we can sort of push the boundaries on what a live experience with music can be. So just in the past, just with the 6 projects that we've put out, we did an immersive listening experience under the stars in Joshua Tree.
Wow.
We did a live performance at Public Records in Brooklyn is one of our partners. It's an amazing venue. We do a lot of our shows there. We did a live experience with Richard Reed Perry and Susie Ibarra, and a third musician in their ensemble who plays the baby grand piano, where they actually called on different audience members to lend their heartbeat to the metronome of the music that they performed.
Oh, cool.
Their whole Heart and Breath album was recorded using their heart and breath to inform the rhythm of the music. So with so much about this, what we've been talking about is this music been meant to guide an intention and an experience. It's important for us to demonstrate it and go a little farther than how we're used to experiencing music. That's the whole idea. So we had actual audience members put this thing onto their ear, and a 3-part music ensemble played along to a hardcore Arcade Fire fan's heartbeat.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was really cool to see that connection of the heart, the breath, the emotion, and music. Not only that, we recorded a live podcast episode with the Sing for Science podcast, who invited a New York Times bestselling author and cardiologist to talk with the artists about the relationship between the heart and breath and music. It was the nerdiest music experience I've ever been a part of, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
Like, everyone loved it. Like the bartenders at Public Records, who see amazing music every single night, were blown away by it. And so just to be able to push people's idea of what music could be like, and when it goes back to like why established artists, Paulie, the PSM, who's an incredible popular music arranger and director, he's music director for Harry Styles on tour. We did a Dolby Atmos audio visual experience where we synced his music in Atmos sound at the Atmos Theater here in Hollywood to visuals of the James Webb Telescope.
Oh, wow.
And invited people to sit and experience that. And more than half of the room was under 25. And they came, their entry point.
Not ambient music aficionados.
Sure. Yeah.
They didn't even know.
They thought Harry was going to be there.
But no, they're Paulie fans because of
right.
what he's done with Harry, and
So,
they really feel that. So
I want to ask you about these events that because Rishi, you opened the door to talking about marketing. And so I want to ask these events from a marketing standpoint, and from an opportunist entrepreneurial standpoint, if you can't share it on social media, I don't know if you're filming them and putting them on YouTube, because it'd be great to see, but like if they are these small experiences, do you get what I'm saying? Like it seems like a waste if you can't be seen by billions of people, even though that still fits the plan of going off air. The opportunist in me is like, who's tweeting about this?
So
my wife says the same thing.
But part of what we do as well is we will have somebody creating content at each event. We'll have a photographer, videographer. We will send photos and video to everybody who attended the show, and where we can, and where we can, have access to those content, those things. So hopefully post show, they have high quality content that they can post. Obviously,
that's cool.
So like we totally understand that and like think about that, and I think there's something to, trying to figure out how to do both at the same time, because like the point of this isn't to be Luddites, right? Like the point, like use technology in the way that can do another thing for us. So we're on the same page as you in thinking that. I mean, like some of the photos and stuff, especially from like Joshua Tree event and stuff, were like just these amazing, beautiful photos and stuff like that. So,
Nate, did you have something to add?
Yeah, we want people to have the type of experience that they tell people about.
Yeah,
and that they think about in their memory.
Yeah,
and if we have to sacrifice the live storying of your experience so that you can get the performance you want from the artist, or so you can feel how that 2 hours of your life changed you and talk about it. It's a little more work on our end, but hopefully it's something that helps us to stand out.
Well, I love it. I love to see the kind of the rethinking of live music. And I think, hopefully that's happening a little bit more now with the pandemic, because we've had time to think about how we want to do it and whether or not we're going to go back to it the way it was before. And in some ways, the live streaming is great for people with different abilities. And I just love it, because I don't like live music for, the opposite reason of some of the things that you're describing, is that a stage was never able to communicate stereo sound ever. It was very rare that your average club could do that. And there was all these variables like the room and the people and the sound system and the sound person. And so for me as an artist and as a music fan, I always struggled with live music. I never enjoyed live music in the same way I enjoy a record. And so I think it's exciting to hear a label and to hear you guys trying to change that, even if it is only, one-time events and maybe not necessarily something that's an artist could take on tour. I
mean, Richard wants to go on tour. He really does. Like we're talking about trying to figure it out, you know, and there's certain artists who could do it, so we'll see. I mean, the other thing we are thinking about too is we work on a lot of festivals on the agency side of our business, and we think there's something to doing like mornings with off air in the campgrounds, right? Like how do we these like big kind of like live moments at sunrise for these people?
It's good for a hangover.
I think it's could be a really special moment. I mean, some of that comes from the idea. I mean, this comes from a Kanye thing that he did, but when Kanye did Sunday service at Coachella,
right
before it started, he was playing like Alice Coltrane records, and we're sitting in the grass field on Sunday morning of Coachella. You're really tired, and there's like these beautiful Alice Coltrane records, and like it was cool. It's like, how do we like take that to the next level? How do we do that? And if James Blake is playing a grand piano for you when you wake up in the morning at Coachella, like that's real cool. Like, like I feel like that's a new way to like even experience the festival space, like another edition.
And Tyler, the Creator, is your personal trainer.
This is you guys have this is just the life of a billionaire is what you're talking about here, guys.
But like, it could happen. Like, if Coachella wanted to do it, they have the ability, the funds, the operational, setup to be able to go and like set up a stage in the campgrounds and hire James Blake to do that.
Yeah.
Like that's not like too far of an idea that couldn't happen,
Yeah, I love everything we've explored here. It seems to me like the future of off air, I mean, even just this idea of it being a verb in a way. And what does the next year or so look like for you? You have these vinyl drops with Vinyl Me Please. You have, do you have a release schedule that you like to stick to, or what's the future look like?
We have 2 releases coming late Q1, early Q2. And we're in A&R mode on a lot of other projects. There's some incredible opportunities with artists and labels who want to explore things with us.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot of like being open and learning from our past year and a half.
Yeah.
And kind of responding to what's working, what isn't working. How do we lean in more a little bit on the experiential? Who are the partners that we work with? And what are the big swings that we're going to take? So
do you have, sorry to interrupt you, do you have boundaries? Do you have parameters? Because I mean, what happens when you get to a point where an artist is so big and enticing and sexy that wants to work with off air, but maybe is pushing what you're comfortable with doing? Like, how do you set up these parameters and saying, we're not going to break these set of rules that makes up an off air release?
Great question.
That's all you
what were you going to say?
Thank you.
That's all you Nate. This is the question for Nate.
Okay, we'll cross that bridge when you get there.
So no. It's we do, and we talk about it. It's as long as we can see it serving our greater purpose. We can give up, we can sacrifice some things, whether it's on the business side or the creativity side, as long as it's speaking to what off air can be and will be. So it's no set, stringent, cookie cutter thing where like everything has to be this. Our branding has to be on it, right? Like people have to, it has to be associated with off air, but these are also licenses. Like we're not owning anyone's masters. We're not like, if it's being sub licensed from a label, great. If it's, there's so many other things. If a huge artist comes to us and is like, I want to do this, but I'm giving you a royalty, you're not giving me a royalty. Like that royalty from that artist could be more than we would make from someone else. But as long as, no, I get. I'm not inviting anyone to do that. But I'm saying like, if we've got to look at like, as long as like Rishi and I and our team and off air are looking to get to a certain point, and as long as we can still get there, we're down to take different roads. There's no like straight line.
Yeah. And I would say just on release schedule in general, I mean, I think like we've always wanted to be a label that is prolific, like we want to put out as much as we can, because I think that's what you need to become a verb, right? That's what you need to break through and show people what you can do and all that kind of stuff. And what we're learning is that it's hard, right? Like it's hard to like do a deal with the artist, have them make it, have them really be into it, get into the schedule, think about physical product, think about marketing, all that kind of stuff, right? So, I think in the next year, what we're exploring is actually kind of like, talking with the wider universal umbrella, like how do we like start bringing in more parts of the company, maybe like, is there a way to lean into catalog? Is there, I mean, like the Oh No record, I don't know if you saw that, but like the Oh No record we put out is basically him remixing a like an Italian Italian record label from the past and modernizing it.
I see. Okay.
So it's all music. So like, is there a way to do that with like kind of deeper kind of like catalog stuff within not even just the Universal system anywhere, right?
That's like, really interesting.
Make it easier?
Yeah.
Does it make it easier to put out more records? Not just easier, but it's like it's good, you know, like that, like. I would definitely like go listen to that Oh No record. It's
sure, yeah.
It's kind of the crowd favorite that whenever people listen to the whole thing, like it's basically like you would say kind of like a lo-fi beats type of record.
Yeah.
But it's better than a lo-fi beats record. You know, like there's more to it because it's deeper, and like that's what we're trying to hit is like how do we be better at those types of things.
Well, it's funny you talk about that catalog idea is great because I mean that the catalog music is what everybody's excited about right now is what's making so much money. And even when I experienced the what's going on for the first time on Dolby Atmos, it was like hearing a new record. The conga's like way over here, and to be able to take those multi-tracks and to do something really special with them could be incredible.
Yeah,
sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, guys. This is an incredible story, incredible label, and thank you so much for taking the time to tell us about it.
Totally. Thanks for having us. This is really great. It's nice to talk about it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
About it for this long that often. So it's great. It's really I'm like excited. Like I'm like fired up to like go out and like do a bunch more stuff.
Good.
Thank you.